Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we are moving on to the next episode in my category breakdown series, and in today's video we are taking a look at the sound category. And as always, if you're new to this series, basically all this is in each video we're just taking a look at every single category at the Oscars, taking a look at the nominees and, discussing some facts about those that are nominated, discussing the nomination itself, and then at the end I'll give you my personal ranking and my prediction for how likely it is that I think they win the Academy Award. And in today's video, I'm going to warn you that there are a lot of nominees. There's a lot of different aspects and different things that go into creating the sound of a film. So each film has multiple people that are nominated, and when we're talking about previous nominations for these people, there used to be two different sound categories: the sound editing category and the sound mixing category. So you're going to see a lot of films, a lot of nominations for a lot of these people, and you're going to notice that some people maybe won for a film for sound mixing, but then someone else lost for that same film in sound editing, or vice versa. So there's going to be some things that maybe seem a little bit confusing, and again, just letting you know that there's going to be a lot. I thought about initially not listing off all of the nominations for all of the nominees in this category, but I decided I still want to celebrate those that are nominated in this category. I still want to celebrate them in their nominations. So I guess this is just going to say I hope you like listening to me list off films and list off a bunch of names and just kind of reading a bunch of names for you. So without further ado, because I know this is probably going to end up being a long video, so without further ado, let's jump into the nominees. The first nominee is a complete unknown. This is Todd A. Maitland's sixth Oscar nomination, and he is still looking for his first win. He was previously nominated in 2022 for West Side Story, 2020 for Joker, 2004 for Seabiscuit, 1992 for JFK, and 1990 for Born on the 4th of July. This is Donald Sylvester's second Oscar nomination. He won back in 2020 for Ford v Ferrari, also directed by James Mangold. This is Ted Kaplan's first Oscar nomination. This is Paul Massey's 11th Oscar nomination. He won in 2019 for the sound mixing of Bohemian Rhapsody. He was also nominated in 2022 for No Time to Die, 2020 for Ford v Ferrari, 2016 for The Martian, 2008 for 3:10 to Yuma, 2007 for Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest, 2006 for Walk the Line, 2004 for Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World, 1998 for Air Force One, and in 1995 for Legends of the Fall. This is David Gianmarco's fourth Oscar nomination, and he is still looking for his first win. He was nominated in 2020 for Ford v Ferrari, 2012 for Moneyball, and in 2008 for 3:10 to Yuma. And a complete unknown here, this is one of, I believe, off the top of my head, I believe it's three films in this category that music is a very important part of the sound design. Now, it's not necessarily, in most cases, it's not typically usually the performances of these songs that are actually getting you the sound nomination, because oftentimes the songs will either be these pre-recorded, or it's just kind of a track that's just kind of played over and there's not a whole lot that goes into it. But for a complete unknown, a lot of it is kind of the important part of, with Timothée Chalamet actually performing these songs live and actually giving these live performances, that is part of the sound design that works so well. Now, of course, when we're talking about the sound design, and especially in this film, a lot of it being kind of the making of music, there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff, so you're going to get a lot of, people playing guitars, or Timothée Chalamet kind of just blowing on the harmonica, kind of listening to things, or the whistle that he picks up kind of from that street vendor. There's different things like that go into that sound design as well, of really kind of getting you into the idea of making the music, the makings of Bob Dylan's of his songs. But ultimately, the biggest thing, and the reason that I personally love the sound design for A Complete Unknown, the biggest part of it, the biggest aspect, is going to be the Newport Folk Festival. It's going to be at the end of the film, when Dylan goes electric. That whole scene, that whole sequence of sound being such an important part of that scene, and being such a impactful piece of the story, I think is a big reason why I love the sound design so much. And it's just beautiful. It's one of those, like, both times that I've seen this in the theater, I'm enjoying the movie, and then when we get to that part, it's almost just kind of like kicking back in your own little concert there, watching Timothée Chalamet channel Bob Dylan and perform these three songs, as he's going electric, and the sound, the audio is just cranked up, but it's not just loud, it sounds good. much to the dismay of the people there at Newport. But it's just, I think that just becomes such a big part of it. The sound design, again, also just kind of the plugging in and unplugging the electric guitars. Everything that involves the making of the music, I think was just done to perfection in this film. So for my personal ranking, I'm putting this in second, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in third. The next nominee is Dune Part 2. This is Gareth John's first Oscar nomination. This is Richard King's ninth Oscar nomination, and he has 4 wins. He won in 2018 for Dunkirk, 2011 for Inception, 2009 for The Dark Knight, and in 2004 for Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. He was also nominated in 2024 for Maestro, 2024 for Oppenheimer, 2015 for Interstellar, and in 2006 for War of the Worlds. This is Ron Bartlett's 4th Oscar nomination. He won in 2022 for Dune Part 1 and was nominated in 2018 for Blade Runner 2049 and in 2013 for Life of Pi. This is Doug Hemphill's 11th Oscar nomination. He won in 2022 for Dune Part 1 and in 1993 for The Last of the Mohicans. He was nominated in 2018 for Blade Runner 2049, 2013 for Life of Pi, 2006 for Walk the Line, 2004 for Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World, 2000 for The Insider, 1998 for Air Force One, 1994 for Geronimo, An American Legend, and 1991 for Dick Tracy. Dune Part 2 was also nominated for Best Sound at the BAFTAs. Now here comes another category where I think Dune Part 2 gets such a big advantage of being, again, I guess there's a couple here that are kind of in kind of the fantasy genre or in like their own kind of worlds, but Dune gets this big advantage of just kind of being in its own world because you get to play with so many different things. You get to create so many different things. And so for the Dune universe, building this world on Arrakis, you're getting a lot of these big spaceships, or you're getting these kind of these swords. You're getting some of the characters that kind of have a little bit more of like the, whether it be levitation, not necessarily levitation, but they can kind of float, or they have kind of more like the it's not really like even like a jetpack either. It's hard to come up with like the words for what exactly they are, but they have different kind of machinery that have kind of the whirring and the different sounds that come with that. So I think there's kind of the whole machinery side of it that works super well. You also just get, for a lot of the scenes, especially a lot of these scenes where Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya, when their characters are kind of a little bit more isolated, you're getting kind of these more natural shots out in the open, outside, outdoors, like in the sand dunes, and so you're getting kind of the sounds of just kind of the wind that's blowing through, and you're getting just the different sounds of kind of the nature that you get to come up with on this what seems like a kind of a barren planet that could be something that could be really boring in terms of like what sounds you can create, but they do a great job of just kind of creating these full sounds. You also get excellent sound design in a lot of the combat and kind of the battle scenes. It's done very well, especially one of the last scene with Timothy and Austin Butler as they're kind of fighting with their daggers. You're getting great sound design there. Kind of going back to the nature, you're getting great sound design work from like the sandworms, especially kind of the device, the thumping device to kind of alert them. There's just so many different things that you're able to do here in the Dune universe to just create this full kind of sci-fi tale, this sci-fi story, and I think the sound design is a big part of why that works so well. So for my personal ranking, I'm putting Dune Part 2 in first, and for my prediction, I'm also putting it in first. I'm not 100% positive on that and very comfortable with that ranking, and we're going to discuss it here in a couple nominees. The next nominee is Emilia Perez. This is the first nomination for all 5 of Erwin Kerzenet, Aymeric de Voldery, Maxence Dussery, Cyril Holtz, and Niels Barletta. And for as much as we've all been, a lot of people have been kind of talking bad about Emilia Perez, me included, especially in terms of these videos of ranking, how much I prefer some of these nominations. While Emilia Perez isn't necessarily for me, and it didn't really work for me or for a lot of people, there is still kind of a bright side to a lot of these Emilia Perez nominations, and it's exactly this. The fact that the majority of the people involved with Emilia Perez and the people that are getting these nominations, for the overwhelming majority, this is their first nomination. This is their first time that they've worked on a film that has gotten this kind of acclaim and this buzz, and especially this kind of Oscars recognition. So I am really happy for the individuals that worked on this film and were able to. While I don't necessarily always love some aspects of it, it is still great to see 5 first-time nominees for one category and for one film. It's just an exciting thing. Now, going on and talking a little bit more about the sound design for Emilia Perez, this is another one of those where can't really give too much, like a whole ton of credit for just the musical numbers as being a big part of the sound design here for Emilia Perez. I think the part of it that you can, I should clarify that, and I just mean like in terms of the actual music. What I can say is a lot of the musical numbers, because there are these big dancing set pieces for the majority of them, and so a lot of them, the music is kind of almost not necessarily in the background, but it's like hand in hand with kind of the sound of what you're hearing as they're kind of dancing around, as they're moving. If there's a lot of kind of movement of moving tables or chairs or just kind of bodies moving around, getting that kind of that sound design on top of it that kind of goes into like the score of the film, or goes into the songs, I think is pretty impressive. But it is just another one of those that, in terms of everything else in this category, like I mentioned, there's 3 other films that kind of involve music in terms of the sound design, and I think the other films do it a little bit better. It's also up against some sci-fi action films that we're talking about in this category, and so I think it's kind of at a disadvantage there. So it's another one of those categories where I'm not intentionally just putting it as low as I am just because I don't like the film, but it's just in terms of what else is here, I prefer everything else a little bit more, and there's also some other films that didn't get nominated that I probably would have given this spot to as well. So for my personal ranking, I'm putting Emilia Perez in 5th, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 4th. The next nominee is Wicked. This is Simon Hayes' 3rd Oscar nomination. He won in 2013 for Les Miserables, and he was nominated in 2022 for No Time to Die. This is the first Oscar nomination for all 3 of Nancy Nugent-Tidal, Jack Dolman, and John Marquise. This is Andy Nilsson's 25th Oscar nomination, and he has 2 wins. He won in 2013 for Les Miserables, and in 1999 for Saving Private Ryan. He was nominated in 2023 for The Batman, 2023 for Elvis, 2022 for West Side Story, 2017 for La La Land, 2016 for Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, 2016 for Bridge of Spies, 2013 for Lincoln, 2012 for Warhorse, 2010 for Avatar, 2010 for Star Trek, 2007 for Blood Diamond, 2006 for War of the Worlds, 2004 for The Last Samurai, 2004 for Seabiscuit, 2002 for Moulin Rouge, 2000 for The Insider, 1999 for The Thin Red Line, 1998 for LA Confidential, 1997 for Evita, 1996 for Braveheart, 1994 for Schindler's List, and 1989 for Gorillas in the Mist. Wicked was also nominated for Best Sound at the BAFTAs. And Wicked here, I think, is the one that, in terms of the 3 sound nominees here that have music as kind of a big part of them, Wicked is the one that I think gets to have a little bit more of that kind of factored in, and gets to kind of be considered a little bit more in terms of the sound category, because of how much of it is, not only is, a lot of it, the multiple of the scenes, kind of, it is more live performances and it is kind of singing as they're going, but there are things like the Defying Gravity number that, as great and as talented as Cynthia Erivo is, so much of it with her kind of, flying all around, and you wouldn't necessarily be able to capture all of that audio the way that she's belting it in multiple scenes. And so for that specific song, you're getting in a lot of kind of the way that they're kind of able to add in some of the background, or kind of edit in the sound design of kind of making sure that the song is still kind of going as smoothly as it is. And obviously, if you've seen Wicked, you understand how important it is to nail the Defying Gravity song as it kind of comes right to the end of the first act here. This is kind of the big final moment, and so it's just the entire sound of that song works so well. And again, another thing that Wicked kind of has similarly to what I was saying with Emilia Perez, is the songs in Wicked, especially like if you think of Defying Gravity, but the couple others, I think Popular maybe does as well. No One Mourns the Wicked, I think, definitely does as well, where there's breaks and there's pauses in the song. Because as they're singing, obviously this song is telling a story and it's telling the narrative of what's happening here, but there's these breaks in between in the middle of the song while something else is still happening. Whether it be, in Popular, where they're kind of moving around in the room and trying on different clothes and doing all these different things. So you're getting a lot of like that kind of the sound design that has to be kind of mixed and edited in. Defying Gravity, you're obviously getting big sections of kind of just in kind of a little, in some of it, a little bit more quiet and reserved as Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande are kind of having this emotional moment together. But then you're also getting kind of the more intense stuff that's kind of breaking off in between, in the middle of the song. And so you're getting kind of this extra sound that you're kind of having to splice into this performance that's happening. Same thing with like No One Mourns the Wicked. You're kind of getting more kind of intense stuff kind of being abrupted and it's kind of breaking up the song. So Wicked, I think, is this is the film that gets a little bit of a spoiler for where I'm putting this, in terms of my prediction, but this is the one I was talking about when I said we were going to talk about it in a couple, when I was talking about Dune. This is the big kind of, so far, it seems like this is kind of shocking to, I think, a lot of people. This has become the big kind of dominant tech player, kind of like what Dune was a couple years ago, what Oppenheimer was last year. Now, I don't think Wicked is going to be quite to their success, obviously, just based off of sheer numbers. It doesn't have quite as many nominations as they did, so not as many opportunities to win. But Wicked, in terms of what it's been doing in these craft categories, has kind of proven itself to be that big tech player. And the big reason why is I think it's just kind of the most well regarded and the most favorable of all of the kind of sci fi action blockbuster movies that we got this year. And so I think sound is another one of those categories that typically kind of goes hand in hand with that idea of the blockbuster film. You think back to previous years, because this year isn't necessarily, I guess, I mean, besides for Wicked and Dune, that's not the best example, but oftentimes a lot of the big blockbusters are what is going to get into the sound categories, where you have the big explosions and you have these chases and you have these fights. Now you kind of get that in Dune, and I guess you technically kind of get it at the end of Emilia Perez, but you get it a lot here in Wicked as well. It's not as many fight scenes. I mean, it's not even really fight scenes. Yeah, I wouldn't even necessarily call them fight scenes, but I would classify a lot of the couple of the scenes as these action scenes of someone's trying to capture someone or someone's trying to get something and someone's trying to get away, and so you kind of get these kind of these chase or these just action is probably the best way to describe it, these action scenes. And so with all of that working as well as it is, I think Wicked is kind of cementing itself potentially as being that big tech threat in these technical categories. And ultimately, I think the question is, you kind of have to just figure out how many Oscars you think Wicked is really going to win in these craft categories. So for my personal ranking, I'm putting Wicked in third, but for my prediction, I'm putting it in second. And again, I think this is kind of, I'm looking at the categories. There's multiple categories where it's kind of Wicked v Dune, kind of going head to head for the win. And I'm probably going to kind of keep flip flopping up to the Oscars, but at this point, you kind of have to just decide who you think is going to come out with more of these craft category wins. And the final nominee is The Wild Robot. This is Randy Thom's 16th Oscar nomination, and he has 2 wins. He won in 2005 for The Incredibles, and in 1984 for The Right Stuff. He was also nominated in 2016 for The Revenant, 2008 for sound mixing and sound editing for Ratatouille, 2005 for sound mixing for The Incredibles, 2005 for sound mixing and sound editing for The Polar Express, 2001 for Castaway, 1998 for Contact, 1995 for sound and effects editing for Forrest Gump, 1992 for Backdraft, 1984 for Never Cry Wolf, and 1984 for Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi. This is Brian Chumney's second Oscar nomination. He was also nominated in 2022 for West Side Story. This is Gary A. Rizzo's 7th Oscar nomination, and he has 2 wins. He won in 2018 for Dunkirk, and in 2011 for Inception. He was also nominated in 2024 for Oppenheimer, 2025 for Interstellar, 2009 for The Dark Knight, and 2005 for The Incredibles. This is Leff Leffert's first Oscar nomination. And The Wild Robot, I think, was maybe kind of the surprise in this category because a lot of people really didn't see this coming. And I think a big part of why a lot of us didn't see it coming is, unfortunately, it's that animation bias. We've seen this kind of in the past couple years with the Academy, where there's some of these animated movies that we think potentially could be like a Best Picture threat, and then not only does it not really ever materialize there, then all of a sudden you start seeing some of the other categories that you had it kind of the locks in, and it all kind of just starts falling apart, and it doesn't get a lot of the nominations it was supposed to get. So it's always fun, and it's always a great time to see when a animated film, especially one as good as The Wild Robot, does find its way into a couple other categories here and there. And one thing that I noticed, especially as I was reading off, especially for Randy Thom, reading off his nominations here, the sound categories used to be like a staple of not animated films, used to kind of be a staple in there. There's a lot of these great animated films that used to be in these categories, and so it's really exciting to see The Wild Robot kind of get back into this category. And I think it's a big thing. I think a lot of animated films, if the film is good, typically they usually have pretty good sound design. And that was one thing that as I was watching The Wild Robot a couple weeks ago at this point in my rewatch for this the Oscar season, when I was rewatching it, I was kind of just caught off guard and kind of blown away by how great the sound design is when you're really kind of focusing in and paying attention to it. Because in this case, you're getting, a story of a robot and these animals. Now, obviously, they're all speaking English, they all can speak, but you still get these moments where the animals aren't speaking and they're kind of running around and making hisses and growls and whatever other noises that the animal would make. And so you get the kind of the great sound design there. And then, of course, you've just got your main character that's a robot. So every step it takes, every kind of movement it makes, it's kind of whirring, and you can hear kind of the clank of the metal that's kind of going on. And then you're getting not only, I mean, obviously you're getting a robot that's doing all this, but you're also getting it's a very advanced robot that has, different buttons or beacons that can kind of signal up and can shoot signals into the sky and can try and, report back home after it's completed its mission and its objective. And so you're getting all of these cool, just kind of tech sci-fi robot sounds that just are coming into this film that I think work really well. And so I think for here, the sound design for The Wild Robot, it's kind of that tandem where you kind of get all of the robot stuff, but then you're also getting this animal sound design that I think the marriage of them two coming together is just really well done. And again, this is one of those that unfortunately I don't think The Wild Robot has much of a chance really of winning really either of its. I mean, I guess it could win score maybe, but just outside of its animated category, it doesn't have a great shot, and especially not really here, but it is still just a great, and this is one of those where kind of the nomination is the victory for The Wild Robot, and I really am just happy to see it here in this category. So for my personal ranking, I'm putting this in 4th, and for my prediction, I'm putting it in 5th. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the nominees here, and let me know if there was any films that you thought maybe were snubbed in this category. And while you're also down there, just let me know what categories you're looking forward to seeing next. I will let you know the next couple. I mean, there's going to be obviously a couple more videos coming up that are category breakdowns, but I also have a couple other non-category breakdowns that should hopefully be coming out either later this week or kind of early into next week. We'll see exactly how it goes there, but if you'd like to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of those future videos, I would greatly appreciate it, and have a great day.